Part 1 of 8. Lord Mountbatten and his wife represented the pinnacle of the English elite, a true pair of power and influence. However, behind their public appearances lay secrets so scandalous and profound that even classified FBI files contained sensational details. The media constantly spread rumors about the couple's romances and extramarital affairs, but archival materials revealed that their vices and tendencies were far more extensive and complex than appeared on the surface. The Battenbergs, the family to which the lord and his wife belonged, held significant influence in Britain. They were related to the royal family, which gave them a special importance in social and political life. The future Lord Louis was born in 1900. He was a second cousin of King George III, highlighting his exceptional privileges from birth. At his christening, his parents chose godparents, representing the heights of European monarchy. His godmother was Queen Victoria herself, his maternal great-grandmother. His godfather was his cousin, Tsar Nicholas II, the last Russian emperor, who ruled until the revolution that forever changed the country's destiny. During his childhood, Louis often visited Russia, becoming familiar with the imperial family not only publicly, but also within a close family circle. Deep in his heart, a profound sympathy for his cousin, Grand Duchess Maria, took root, and these romantic feelings persisted throughout his life. He even kept a photograph of his beloved on his bedside table, and that photo accompanied him until his last days. Louis's public life was almost non-existent. He did not interact with people outside his family circle and was educated at home from an early age. Such practice was quite common among royal persons, providing an opportunity to control their environment and educate children in a cozy setting. At the age of 10, he transferred to the prestigious boarding school Lockers Park, and essentially, a few weeks before his 13th birthday, he entered the Royal Naval Academy. However, at a time when Europe was heating up and tensions between countries were growing, Louis's family name became a burden. The rise of nationalist sentiments and anti-German rhetoric, especially during World War I, compelled King George V to change the name of their house, from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to Windsor. This step was taken to soften negative attitudes toward the royal family's German origins and strengthen patriotic spirit in the country. Relatives with German roots, such as the Battenbergs, also changed their surnames, adopting English variations, Montbetton. Louis, already a young man at age just 16, decided to serve in the Navy. He joined the Royal Navy, earning the rank of midshipman aboard the legendary cruiser HMS Lion, one of the most powerful warships of that era. His service began with the first combat engagements, and in August 1918, he truly saw active duty. The ship was involved in a battle where the young officer was required to show courage and resilience, which became an important chapter in his destiny and military career. By the end of World War II, he had been transferred aboard HMS Queen Elizabeth, but as combat operations gradually subsided, his personal ambitions began to exert increasing influence over his fate. Specializing in naval communications and signals allowed the young lord to quickly rise through the ranks, demonstrating perseverance and determination. Ultimately, by 1934, he received his first command of a ship, a battleship, which often served as a stepping stone for further career advancement. It should be noted that his career progression was largely driven not only by professional skills, but also by connections and acquaintances he managed to forge thanks to his influence. Almost immediately after the conclusion of World War I, Lord Mountbatten accompanied the future King Edward on a royal tour of Australia, and later to Japan and India. During these travels, they maintained a close friendship that over time laid the foundation for strong personal ties. Additionally, he had a special closeness with another person linked to the stories of millions, the current King of the United Kingdom, Charles III. At that time, Charles was his great-grandson, and Lord Mountbatten significantly influenced the young prince, acting as a kind of mentor and authority figure. The boy called him his honorary grandfather, emphasizing their warm and trusting relationship. Regarding his personal life, Mountbatten strongly encouraged Charles to enjoy the free bachelor life as he himself experienced difficulties in parting with this lifestyle, and leaving it was not an easy decision for him. On July 18, 1922, he married Aaron and Lady of Society, Edwine Ashley. After the wedding, the young couple embarked on a honeymoon that lasted across the European continent and into North America. At the end of their journey, while in California, they met the great comedian Charlie Chaplin. During this meeting, they appeared in one of his silent films called Good and Friendly, but unfortunately, this film was never shown in theaters to the general public. Nevertheless, the good relationship between the spouses did not last long. Montbetton later admitted that throughout their marriage, they repeatedly shared beds with other people, indicating complex personal relationships and their open freedom in expressing feelings. As early as 1921, amid widespread protests and strikes over terrible working conditions, unrest and social tension were escalating in the United Kingdom. During that period, commanding a group of fire engines acting as primitive battalions to combat protesting strikers, Montbetton was tasked with suppressing the protests and restoring order. This unit was notably poorly organized, with many of its members practically inexperienced in handling weapons, and they lacked firing skills altogether. Nevertheless, Montbetton's perfectionism and relentless determination were still his strengths. His professional field, maritime communication and signals, gradually drew his increasing attention to the emerging technological advancements of the time. His endless fascination with gadgets and new devices became a true passion, helping him not only professionally, but also broadening his range of interests. In 1924, he enrolled at the Signal School in Portsmouth and briefly studied electronics at the Royal Naval College in Greenwich. His knowledge and rapid career advancement in the Royal Navy opened up prospects for his participation in future major conflicts. When World War II commenced in 1939, he assumed command of the destroyer HMS Kelly, which earned fame through its daring and sometimes dangerous adventures during combat. This man gained substantial combat experience, particularly in the regions of Norway, the English Channel, and the Mediterranean. However, his involvement in battles often lacked any particular heroism. His ship became a proverbial example for ironic jokes, due to command errors made by the captain himself. Many critics and officers noted that his leadership qualities left much to be desired. In one of the humorous episodes, he directed HMS Kelly straight into a minefield, and as a result of his clumsy actions, collided with another British ship. This earned him a reputation as someone more likely to cause harm than help. Due to his incompetence and frequent mistakes, he was labeled the disaster master, emphasizing that his command often showed pronounced disorganization and inefficiency. Despite these shortcomings and numerous public losses, these were closely tied to his high social status, which allowed him to maintain his position within the military hierarchy. He was able to leverage connections and family ties to gradually restore his reputation and even gain a certain authority through his influence and acquaintances. During the Battle of Crete, his ship HMS Kelly was finally sunk by enemy bombers, marking the end of this chapter in his military career. When a relative lull in hostilities occurred in 1941, Montbetton headed to the shores of Pearl Harbor for a brief inspection tour. 3 months before the Japanese Army's attack, he visited this strategic American military base. It is worth noting that he demonstrated insight and publicly expressed his shock at the base's lack of readiness for potential attacks, foreseeing that the Japanese might strike unexpectedly. His viewpoint garnered respect from the higher command of the United Kingdom. He was valued for his foresight and ability to anticipate danger. In 1942, he was tasked with developing the tactics for an operation named Raid DP. In the style typical of a disaster master, this plan ended in a major failure, resulting in heavy losses, almost 60% of the wounded and dead. And, as was often the case with him, he continued advancing up the career ladder despite these significant miscalculations and setbacks. In August 1943, Prime Minister Winston Churchill personally promoted him, granting him the temporary rank of full admiral. Elevated in rank, he was appointed to a very important position: Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in Southeast Asia. Fortunately, there were responsible and competent individuals who could contain his ambitions and steer his activities in the right direction. For many years, he continued recklessly planning his actions in Southeast Asia, but faced strong resistance at all levels of command. His proposals were filled with illogical ideas, often unfeasible and dangerous, including daring plans for water landings, which enemies and colleagues considered short-sighted and irresponsible. Almost all his initiatives were rejected by more experienced strategic planning specialists, whose professional training and knowledge of the situation surpassed his own ideas and concepts. Nevertheless, even amid setbacks and criticism, the commander found new ways to demonstrate himself in unpredictable circumstances. For example, in 1945, he participated in the Potsdam Conference, an event attended by the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. In an attempt to strengthen his position and gain trust, he decisively tried to persuade Stalin by claiming connections to the Russian imperial dynasty, the same rulers overthrown many years ago by the revolution and subsequent regime change. This move, seemingly inappropriate, bewildered those around him, as he directly sought to associate himself with historical figures who conflicted with Soviet leadership. Remarkably, after the war, he was awarded high honors as well as various medals and orders for his service at sea, reflecting recognition of his merits. He received the titles of Viscount and later Baron Errol, symbolizing his significance in the eyes of the British Empire. However, these titles were mostly formal, as the actual policy of the higher echelons of power aimed to eliminate active participants from the scene. In 1947, on the 20th of February, he was entrusted with the position of Viceroy of India, which was perceived as a sign of his importance. Although his appointment was justified by his presumed competence in Indian policy, there were rumors and speculations that the British government sought to avoid his possible interference in the country's internal affairs. Regardless of the reasons behind this decision, he faced a colossal task: managing India's transition to independence and freeing it from British crown rule. The time frame for this was strict, with the end of the process set for June 30, 1948. His instructions were to act very carefully and in full accordance with the new, more nuanced colonial ambitions of Britain, which were characteristic of the 20th century. His task was to avoid any division of the territory and to try to preserve India's unity as much as possible. At the same time, he was given enough freedom to maneuver and adapt his actions to the current situation, ensuring that the positive image of British influence would last as long as possible. He arrived in India on March 22, 1947. Immediately upon his arrival, mass unrest erupted in the cities of Delhi, Bombay, and Rawalpindi. In response to what many considered an inappropriate intervention by the British High Command in the country's internal affairs, and amid increasing tension and instability, this authoritarian lord hastened to express his desire to conclude his mission as soon as possible to avoid further escalation of the conflict. Mountbatten's advisors insisted on a gradual transfer of independence, believing that such an approach would be less traumatic and better maintain peace in the former colony. However, the Lord himself viewed the situation differently. Carefully studying the circumstances and the local situation, he concluded that a gradual release from British rule could lead to a bloody civil war and numerous riots. That is why he decided to act quickly and decisively to ensure order and stability. His decision had far-reaching consequences, the echoes of which are felt to this day in the political and social life of the region. During his mediation between Indian nationalist leaders, especially within India itself, as well as between Muslim and Hindu representatives, Mountbatten gradually came to believe that the most sensible and safe solution would be to divide the vast country into two independent states, India and Pakistan. Many residents and leaders of the region were extremely dissatisfied with this decision, considering it hasty and largely imposed. Nevertheless, the Lord ignored their protests and, despite resistance, officially announced the partition on August 15, 1947. This event marked a bloody turning point, ushering in a new phase in South Asian history. The subsequent mass migrations became some of the largest in the region's history. Muslims began to leave India in large numbers to reach the new state of Pakistan, while Hindus and other Indian residents hurried to migrate in the opposite direction. Due to the lack of careful planning and organization during partition, chaos and clashes erupted, leading to numerous casualties. It was precisely because of Mountbatten's hasty actions and poor leadership that the migrations resulted in immense suffering, uncontrolled unrest, and loss of human lives. His clumsy decisions once again caused suffering for many people, even as he continued to enjoy undeserved victories and prestigious titles. Some Indian nationalists praised Mountbatten's decision as correct and timely. It was on this day, August 15, 1947, that, upon the initiative of the new Indian Prime Minister, he was appointed the first Governor-General of independent India. This high position added another significant status to his already impressive list of titles, further emphasizing his importance and role in regional history. Leading the process of political integration for the new state, he managed to persuade many small princely states on the fringes to join centralized Indian governance. His diplomatic talent gained him many supporters, but also critics, who pointed out potential risks and difficulties of such unification. As his powers as Governor-General gradually wound down, more positive feedback from India's leadership began to appear. In the following years, his travels across the country were met with warm receptions, indicating recognition and respect. In stark contrast, his attitude toward Pakistan was entirely different. He often elicited hostility and negativity, as many viewed his attitude and actions toward that country as hostile and unfriendly. After completing his work in India, he returned to Britain and resumed his service in the Royal Navy. Throughout the 1950s, his career continued to advance. He regularly received promotions, and in 2005, he took his final position as First Lord of the Admiralty and head of the Naval Service. A coincidental detail since 40 years earlier, his father had held the same role. His wife, Edwina, died in 1960 at the age of 68, but the late husband did not linger long in grief or stagnation. He quickly returned to public and personal life, becoming increasingly famous for his numerous romantic relationships with women much younger than him. Among his romantic affairs was a lengthy affair with actress Shirley Moulin, which drew widespread attention and sparked numerous conversations. Such relationships were not always fully kept secret. However, some intrigues and romantic liaisons remained clandestine, and the reasons for this lay in scandalous rumors that circulated about his name throughout his life. Even after his death, rumors persisted about his tendencies, with some sources claiming that he had perversions related to young boys, and serious allegations were made about organized trafficking rings led from Ireland for the supply of young boys. In 1999, FBI documents were declassified, revealing that the agency monitored his extramarital life and described him and his wife as people with extremely low moral qualities. It was also known that he had illegal interests in young boys. Towards the end of his life, he decided to retire peacefully. In the 20s, he purchased a summer estate in northwestern Ireland, where he enjoyed spending time fishing from his small boat. This place became his refuge, a secluded corner where he could enjoy silence, fresh air, and quiet nature, away from the public and scandalous rumors that accompanied his life. Located near the border of Northern Ireland, this area was particularly vulnerable, making it an easy target for terrorist actions. On the night of August 26, 27, 1979, Thomas McMahon, a member of the Irish Republican Army, infiltrated a ship owned by Montbetton and secretly installed a remotely controlled explosive device. This act was carefully planned and carried out with the aim of harming or shocking people in the area. The next morning, on a clear and calm day, Montbetton, along with a group of relatives, went fishing. He hoped to enjoy a peaceful and pleasant time, but fate had other plans. Just a few hundred yards from the shore, as the boat approached a good fishing spot, a powerful explosion erupted. As a result, the boat's owner, his 14-year-old grandson, and a 15-year-old local crew member, mature and quietly performing his duties, were killed. The tragedy was a terrible blow to all close to him and to the local community. Unfortunately, among those on board was also an esteemed 83-year-old lady named Dajaj Lady Darren Brayburn. At the moment of the explosion, she was with the others and, suffering serious injuries, died the next day, further heightening the sense of tragedy and loss. This incident became a striking example of how political conflicts and terrorist acts can destroy innocent lives, regardless of age or social status. Thank you for your attention to our broadcast dedicated to historical events. History is full of such dramatic stories, and it is these accounts that help us better understand the lessons of the past. When you are fascinated by exploring the most significant and mysterious pages of history, it is important to maintain interest and a critical perspective. In conclusion, don't forget to visit our main resource, the website called Factate, where you will find many fascinating and educational facts about the world. Together, we will discover new horizons of knowledge and expand our understanding in an exciting journey through the pages of history.